light the entire time. I hated it. And I was just, please, can we do something else? And then one day it clicked. And I said, this is really kind of cool. And I found out about the Historic Preservation Program and actually wrote my entry essay to get in on lighthouses. And Dr. Ted came to me last fall and said, I have this friend, her name is Sandy, and she needs your help. And I said, okay, what do you mean? And he goes, there's a lighthouse that is needing some history, research, and needs some help being preserved. And he's like, I think you'd be really interested in it. So I checked it out and I said, yeah. So Sandy and I met, and my goal has been to document the history of your guys' unique lighthouse. There's not many lighthouses on the Great Lakes that are on a crib. Most of them are put on islands, they're put on the shore. You guys have a very unique lighthouse here. And I want to commemorate the men who worked at this lighthouse. The Lighthouse Service, if you know anything about them, if you know anything about the Life-Saving Service, you know anything about the Coast Guard, those guys work their butts off. And I think it is a very unique and awesome history that we have here on the Great Lakes that's not being shown. And that's my goal, is to help in commemorating the men, and sometimes women. If you're ever interested in learning about some women on the Great Lakes, I can tell you about that too. But to tell you guys all about that. And then also encouraging others to help preserve this lighthouse. You guys are all here because you love it, and I want other people to realize what an awesome treasure you guys have here in Toledo. But what it takes to create this history. So I kind of looked at it and said, all right, what are the important facts to help you guys tell this story? And I kind of asked, I got down to Sandy and I said, what do you want to know? And she said, I want to know more about the men who worked here. I want to know more about everything that happened at this lighthouse. We want a history. We really don't have a full rounded history. And I said, okay, so let's think. I said deeds. How did this lighthouse come to be? Who decided it? When was it decided? What guys said, you know what, we need a lighthouse here, it's important. Oral histories. I wanted to know about the men who worked here. One of the gentlemen sitting here today, actually, I got to interview him and hear about his time at the lighthouse, which was a really inspiring story. The logbooks. What happened every day at that lighthouse? We don't know, and that's a really important key, and one of my current pain in the butt, trying to find where these logbooks are. The salary records. What were these guys working for there? The plans, so how did they decide how to build this unique lighthouse on the crib, and images. We all know that a picture tells, is worth 1,000 words. What happened at this lighthouse, and telling that story can be really well told, in my opinion, through images. So this is kind of what I've found so far. It's a work in progress. As Sandy kind of alluded to, the Coast Guard's been kind of difficult to work with, and working at the National Archives and trying to find this stuff has been a chore. It's been really difficult, and I'm still trying. I'm going to find it, and you guys will hear more about this adventure as I go on. So the deeds. I was lucky enough about 3 weeks ago to go to the National Archives. And in Washington, D.C., I actually was flying on that lovely blustery day a couple Sundays ago when those storms came through. I was trying to come home. I was stranded in D.C. for about 8 hours. It was great. But I did get some awesome stuff. I actually found the original governor's deed in 1939, which is interesting. 1939, what does that have to do with you guys? You were created in 1904, which is current one of my questions, but 1939 is approximately when the Coast Guard kind of stepped in. It actually became the Coast Guard rather than the Lighthouse Service. So it was around that time that was happening. But I have the original. This is an image of the seal as well as the signatures of the governor saying, this is a national lighthouse. It's a part of that. And I also have the deed from the city of Toledo saying, this is a national lighthouse now, it is a part of the Coast Guard. It is no longer run, what Dr. Ted and I believe, to be run by the city. So, very interesting find. I was pretty excited about that. I did a little happy dance around the National Archive. But then I have my oral histories, which have been one of my more rewarding experiences, and also kind of something that I'm really, it's kind of a mad dash to find these. So my past lighthouse keepers and assistants, and also Coast Guard service, Jack Schaefer's here tonight. I was lucky enough to sit down with him and say, so, what was it like to work here? He actually shared his stories, what his experiences were there, what it was like to work on that lighthouse, and also, what was the day-to-day life? He actually told me really interesting. It was the first time he ever grew a beard on this lighthouse, and what did they do day-to-day? And I think in telling the history of that story, you have to know the guys who worked there. You have to understand their life, what they did, and what it was like to be out on a lighthouse for a month at a time. I mean, think about how far that is. If anybody's done the boat trip, it's quite a boat trip, and we had a little bit more higher powered boats than the guys that were going out there. Imagine when they were rowing their boats out there. No. You know, especially if there was a storm. I mean, we've all seen how hard it is to get on and off. Imagine what it was like for those guys getting on and off of that light. Family members of those who worked. I had the pleasure of meeting Dwayne Scholler's daughters. He actually passed away a couple years ago. He worked on the lighthouse, and they had awesome stories as well as awesome letters. I actually received copies of the letters that he wrote to his wife while he was on the lighthouse, and during the time while he was having to be on his month on at the lighthouse, his wife miscarried their first child. He couldn't come home. He was a United States employee. He had to be here. He had to do his job. And so seeing those letters and trying to be to his wife, and be there for her and waiting for his time to get off. I also got to hear about some of the foods that they were eating, different things like that. You're getting an understanding of who these people were and a better understanding of that lighthouse. And then also what happened after the lighthouse shut down. In 1989, when we kind of sealed her up, before you guys all stepped in and did the amazing work that you're doing. Tim Mayer actually was out there, and him and his wife were part of the people that kind of helped in closing it down. And so what was it like there? And the one thing that always stuck with me is he said there were so many bugs. And I don't know if you guys out there were kind of like, oh, there are a lot of bugs. And it was the same. I asked, was that the same then? And so it's those histories of the things that we're not going to be able to get from those government records. Go on. So the salary records. This was another one of my awesome finds in my 9 hours spent at the National Archives, which was a test in itself. I actually was working with the head archivist that does everything related to the Navy and the Coast Guard. He was a very great guy. He said, okay, we'll pull out the salary records from 1909 to 1912. And lo and behold, we have them. So this list actually shows the keepers, the first assistants, and second assistants' pay. These guys were paid, so it was a monthly stipend, but they were paid quarterly. So hopefully you're good at maintaining a budget. But you're on a lighthouse, so hopefully your wife's maintaining the budget for you. And they were receiving anywhere from $35 to $50 monthly. That's it, between 1909 and 1912. So you're out there for a month. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard about the rigorous schedule for a lighthouse keeper, but you're cleaning that light every day. You're getting all the bugs off. That lighthouse had to be in pristine condition at all times. If an inspector came and it wasn't, you'd lose your job. So these are actually images of those original salary records. So the top right here, you'll see August Kramer and C.F. Chapman. They were your guys' lighthouse keepers from 1909 to 1912. And they were received annually, bi-monthly. It was $52 a month. And then below here, you'll see the first assistants and second assistant salaries. Up above, you'll also see where they were appointed to your lighthouse and also when they took the oath to officially work with your guys' lighthouse. It was a pretty cool find. I was in the process of getting the next section of salaries when my time ran out. The interesting thing with the National Archives is they only pull every 2 hours. There's also another 150 people waiting for their pulls. They have about 60 kids running back, trying to find your number, running back with your stuff every 2 hours. So a lot of people very frustrated trying to find things, but another good find was the plans. I actually have this came with the governor's deed actually, showing where they planned to put your guys' lighthouse. This is the exact points where it was going to be located. We also have the current status, which Sandy had received from Duquette Architects Planners Incorporated. But along with all of this, I found they gave me basically the plans of this is what the lighthouse condition was in 1909. This is how they built it, why they built it that way, in a step-by-step basis. And I think that's a really important thing because you guys, again, have a very unique lighthouse. It is very significant because, again, it's on a crib. And clearly they had to, they shut down Turtle Island to build your guys' lighthouse because of what was going on there. And it had to be very durable. Again, 1904. Think about the type of engineering that was around at that time, and to build a lighthouse that's still standing to this day. That is something I think is really important and a very interesting, and I would love to find more on that, and it's my current endeavor to find more on. And the materials they use, which, they kind of stood the test of time. Like Sandy said, it's in fairly good condition, and it's my hope that we can keep doing that. So, images. I'm currently in talks with the National Archives section in College Park, Maryland, to get more images, but I also worked with Bowling Green's Great Lakes Historical Center, and then also the individuals who worked at this lighthouse. Right here you'll see Dwayne Scholler when he worked at the lighthouse, and one of his friends that worked at the lighthouse as well. And then these were images donated to me from the Bowling Green's collection. So again, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So I'm trying to find more pictures. If anyone has worked at the lighthouse, has family members that have worked at the lighthouse, and you have a picture of your friend, family member, that's going to be an awesome story because it's a part of that story and it's all going to come together. Logbooks. All right. So this is my current bugaboo. Where are they? I went to the National Archives in DC, and they're like, oh, we have everyone's logbooks. Okay. So we pull them out, and I have all the logbooks for Turtle Island. I have the logbooks for Maumee Range Lights. There was nothing for Toledo Harbor Light. Okay. At this point, I'm just like ready to pull my hair out, like, what do you mean? So I go down to my friend who is the head archivist for the Coast Guard. He goes, what do you mean? We have them. We have everyone's. Okay, well, they're not there. Let me look. I'll be back upstairs and I'll bring you the logbooks. Okay. An hour passes, 2 hours pass, 3 hours, 4 hours, and closings in another 15 minutes. All right then, and he comes in, shirt untucked, his tie is askew, his hair is a mess, and he goes, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I'm like, I'm traveling here from Michigan. I've contacted you guys ahead of time. He said, I don't know. They're not there. He goes, my only suggestion is to start contacting the other offices that we have in Chicago and New York and see what they say. He goes, I'd go with Chicago. It's your safe bet. Okay. I took a deep breath, took what I had. I was excited about what I had. I know, where I can get more. So I contact Chicago. And I got an email on Monday of last week from Chicago. There are new logbooks for the Toledo Harbor Light. Okay, you should contact New York. I feel like I'm a pinball right now. They're sending me around. And so I emailed them out on Tuesday, and I've not heard back from New York. So I'm currently on a hunt for our logbooks, and if anyone, please, you guys know anything about the logbooks, please share. There is a chance, maybe one of our last keepers, maybe, he was concerned about, what's going to happen to them. They are a very important part of our history, and he wanted to protect them. There's a chance for that. It could be here at the library. I've been in contact with most of our local history librarians. I've been working with them tirelessly. They don't have them as far as I know. She's still looking, the woman I've been working with. But yeah, so if anyone knows anything or has any leads, I'd really appreciate it. And again, why they're so important. It's kind of telling us what happened there daily. It's a really big part of our puzzle of telling the history of this lighthouse. And also it's kind of talking about the storms. So right now, what happened during a storm on this light? Can you imagine, especially think about, when Hurricane Sandy came through last year. Imagine what it was like to be on that lighthouse with those winds. I have friends who are mariners and they say, yes, Lake Huron is terrifying. Yes, Lake Superior is terrifying, but Lake Erie is an entire kind of different wicked because it's a shallow lake, and when the wind picks up on this lake, you have no control. So imagine being one of those keepers that's working out there trying to help these guys get into safe harbor. The stories that are in those logbooks have to be amazing, and that is my big thing. And especially right now with the storm of 1913, I don't know how many people know about that. It was 100 years ago, just about exactly 100 years ago. It happened at the beginning of November, and over 200 men died on the Great Lakes that day in a 3-day span. Countless ships were lost, and what's happening here? I want to know. I want to know what these guys were doing trying to protect these people. And I think that's really important. I want to know about the maintenance at the beginning of the lighthouse, the staff, and again, there's shipwrecks out there. What were they doing to protect those ships, and what shipwrecks may have happened? So, your guys' lighthouse, again, is very important. And obviously, Turtle Island was shut down for multiple reasons, and I think part of it is because we needed a light that was really going to help these guys guide their way in here and find a safe harbor. And I think it's really important to find out what shipwrecks happened and why it was so important all of a sudden to have Toledo Harbor Light, which is an amazing lighthouse, be saved. So, all right, and my thank you again to Dr. Lewell, to Sandy, to Jack, to Dwayne, everyone who's helped me so far. And if you guys have questions, concerns, anything, if you guys actually want to see those deeds as well, I brought them with me. I also have the plans. I have some awesome images. I have those original letters of Dwayne Scholler's to his wife if you want to take a look. But yeah, so thank you, you guys, and this is an ongoing process. This is my final project for my master's degree. Dr. Ted won't let me leave if I don't finish it, so it will be done. But yeah, so if you guys have any questions, please let me know.